This is the weekend preview for Monster Energy AMA Supercross, moving from one town synonymous with racing in America to the next, from Daytona to Indianapolis, and the dome that is Lucas Oil Stadium. This will be the first East-West Showdown race of the year, pitting the best 250 East riders against the best 250 West riders. Well, kind of the best. There's a lot of injuries in both divisions, and we'll get to that later in the video with our Liat injury report. So for now, let's just focus on the great news in the 450 class. Ken Roczen fans, and these days who isn't, had plenty to celebrate at Daytona, and Roczen remains steadily in this championship fight despite a bad result in Tampa. He's only 16 points down. Here's the real shocking thing. Roczen is just 6 points behind Chase Sexton for second in the standings. And there's more good Roczen news. He has been great at Indianapolis as of late, sweeping all three races during the residency in 2021, winning the race in 2023 also, and finishing second last year. And the guy that he finished second to won't be racing. That's Jet Lawrence. So Roczen could be the prohibitive favorite going into Indy, coming off the heels of the Daytona win. Could he get back into the championship hunt? Is he already still in the championship hunt? Cooper Webb would like to have something to say about that. He continues to hold the series lead, 10 up on Sexton, again 16 up on Roczen. And there's one more factor to consider this weekend. The only weekend off of the championship comes up after this. Series resumes March 22nd in Birmingham. So there'll be a lot more momentum for whoever wins this one. Now let's explore that 250 East-West Showdown. It's still going to be exciting. There's still plenty of talent on the line. A rejuvenated RJ Hampshire, who we didn't get to see his best stuff at the opener in Tampa, was good and finished on the podium in Detroit, and was much better at Daytona, taking the win there. He says that wrist, that has been a problem for a while, is getting better quickly, and that's allowing him to make bike changes to match, and he was a whole lot better and stronger and more comfortable at Daytona. Is it a different Hampshire than the one that wasn't able to win at the other two stadium-style rounds of the year? Well, Max Anstey, who holds the point lead in 250 East, might have something to say about that. But the best part is, they're not the only ones talking, because here comes the West, and yes, point leader Hayden Deegan. By the way, all three red plates this weekend will be held on Yamahas. Just an interesting piece of trivia there with Webb, Anstey, and Deegan. You know that Deegan will want to show the field that his performance at Arlington, where he dominated, was not a fluke, and he definitely would like to show that also against the 250 East riders. And as far as the championship goes for Deegan, there's a lot of things headed his way. It has now been announced that Jordan Smith is out for the weekend. He still has a spleen injury to recover from after his crash late at the previous race for the West in Arlington. And Julien Beaumer says he will be racing, but if you recall, he dislocated his shoulder in a qualifying crash at Arlington and did not ride as well there as he had in the previous rounds this season. And furthermore, Beaumer told us on Wednesday this week that he still has not ridden since Arlington. He said he's going to race this weekend no matter what, but we don't know what type of performance to expect out of him. One X factor in the West could be Cole Davies, who seems to get better every single week. And there's still lots of talent in the East. Dax Bennick has had a podium. Seth Hamaker has had a podium. Chance Hymas has been close to the podium. Nate Thrasher's just the kind of guy that can go from subpar results and battling a bit of injury to suddenly winning at a race like this. He's done it before. So there's lots to talk about. But honestly, so much is outlined by the injury report. So let's get to it. Brought to you by our friends at Liat, the science of thrill. First, we'll talk 450 class injury report. Cade Clayson remains out with an arm injury, suffered in Tampa. Christian Craig plans to return at Birmingham after the break, coming back from ACL. And then we know about the other big names: Hunter Lawrence, Jet Lawrence, Jorge Prado, and Eli Tomac, all out. Tomac hinting he could be back before Supercross is over. Everyone else probably won't be back until Pro Motocross round 1, the earliest. And what's incredible is that's all the injuries there are in the 450 class. Seems like an injury-ravaged year. It's not a lot of riders. It's more of a quality over quantity, because we're talking some of the biggest stars in the sport that are out. As for 250 East, and again, these riders could have all been racing this weekend in the Showdown. Pierce Brown out with a back injury. Casey Cochran still out with a leg injury suffered in the offseason. And then recent additions to the list, you've got Levi Kitchen with that huge crash at Daytona, broken collarbone and fractures in his upper back. And Cameron McAdoo is trying to tough it out with a torn ACL. He is now headed for surgery. There's another rider dealing with a knee injury, going to take this weekend off. That is Nick Romano. He hopes to return to racing at Birmingham. Devin Simonson, Jalik Swoll out for Supercross with injuries to the wrist and Achilles, respectively. And as mentioned, Nate Thrasher dealing with a finger injury, but he is still racing. Let's go to 250 West. Bad news continues for Monster Pro Circuit Kawasaki. Drew Adams with a collarbone injury suffered in Glendale. It's unclear when he will return to racing. We presume not this weekend. Anthony Burden, the Frenchman, huge injuries, hip, pelvis, and back out for a while. Ryder DeFrancesco recovering from internal injuries. He's out. Other riders that were already out include Evan Ferry with an Achilles, Derek Drake recovering from Lyme's disease, Talon Hawkins broke his femur in San Diego, Billy Laninovich hurt his wrist while practicing. He is out for the Showdown. Ty Masterpool recovering from broken fingers. He's back riding, but not racing Indy. Styles Robertson, more surgery needed on his wrist. He's out. Noah Viney out with a shoulder injury. Robbie Wageman with a fractured hand, wrist. He's out, hoping to be back at Denver. And we mentioned Jordan Smith is out. The spleen is the problem there, so not sure when he's going to return. Seattle will be next up for the West Riders, so there's a long break there. But a lot on the line. Again, a bad start or one mistake will be magnified with more talent on the line in the Showdown. Let's talk about the racetrack that they will be showing down on with Jason Thomas.
Next up is Indianapolis. And I think this is one of the more underrated rounds of the series. Indianapolis downtown has really come alive. And I know we're talking about the racetrack, but I think for most people, they would assume that Indianapolis is cold, not a lot of fun, Midwest, but that couldn't be farther from the truth. Indy's up there these days. Now, thinking of the racetrack, you see the start cuts right through the middle, which is going to make it a little bit shorter. I'm not a huge fan. I like to give the riders some room to move around. I think the longer starts open up the outside gates for some of the guys that like to get outside, use that horsepower, and get away from all of the hustle and bustle of those inside gates. So they're going to have to think a little bit more about their strategy for where to line up. You see the whoops, there's a jump leading in, but it's pretty fast coming in. So watch for riders like Malcolm Stewart, Sexton, Roxon, those guys to try to take advantage of that and carry a lot of speed over that single coming across the start horizontally and enter the whoops with a lot of speed. Now, this is a little bit of a detraction for riders like Justin Cooper or Cooper Webb, who really can make up ground when the whoops are right out of a corner because they'll stick to the inside and get a rhythm going through the whoops. But when there is a lot of speed entering the whoops, then they have to try to blitz in most cases, or they have to jump a lot quicker to make up for the speed that guys like Roxon and Sexton and Stewart will bring into those whoops. So watch for that to be a determining factor in the main event. The rest of the track's pretty straightforward. We have a really long left-hand sand section, so watch to see if two lines can form there. But a lot of the time, these two lines turn into one line as the inside gets blown out, and it becomes one line all the way through. The one thing they could do is separate it the way they did at Detroit and make a firm inside and a firm outside. That could create a little bit of a passing zone. And remember how pivotal that inside-outside section was for Levi Kitchen passing Max Anstey on the first lap of the restart. So overall, Indy should be good. The one variable is we won't know how sticky and ruddy the dirt will be until we arrive on Friday. So that's always something we have to keep an eye on because, again, it's snowing in Indianapolis. We're still in the midst of winter, and that can be a huge game changer if the rhythm sections get really soft and ruddy late in the main event.
Thanks, JT. If you want to hear more from us and you're coming to Indianapolis early, come to our live show. It takes place at the Irving Theater, 15 minutes away from the stadium, Friday night. Doors open at 6:30. Show starts at 7:30. It's myself, Jason Weigandt, along with Jason Thomas, who you just heard, and Steve Mathis on stage, bringing you the best of PulpMX and Racer X brought to life. Our guest will be none other than the Phil Nicoletti and the great Justin Brayton, and we will take audience questions, and we'll try to get some more celebrity guests to show up for the show as well. If you're interested in joining us for the Indy live show Friday night, go to pulpamex.com/Indy Live and get your tickets. Come on down to the Irving Theater. Otherwise, we'll see you at Lucas Oil Stadium on Saturday, or tune it in on Peacock or the SMX Video Pass. Racing begins at 7 Eastern Saturday night.